From your listening device all the way into your agent's psyche. It's Real Estate Between the Lines with Brian Lee. Teaching you things you didn't know you needed to know to help you become a legendary agent and turn your clients into raving fans.
Welcome to Real Estate Between the Lines. I am your host, Brian Lee. I'm all about helping the real estate industry improve. We're still just one agent at a time. Still just one agent at a time.
Good.
With me is my beautiful co-host, business partner. She's taking over the podcast, I think, at this point. Your teeth are straight and perfect. And
look right. You look.
Are they clean?
I think they're clean.
Did you have broccoli? Okay.
And guacamole.
Oh, that's what it was. Either that or it was some
Cilantro.
snot, maybe.
No!
It was green. I didn't know. I don't know.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm not judging.
You mash up brocco-mole.
That sounds disgusting.
That sounds disgusting. You serving that as a party.
Brocco-mole.
Guacamole.
Somebody like getting a chip and dipping like, what?
Yeah, what is it?
This?
What's wrong?
Oh, it's my brocco-mole. Like,
No.
With us to my left is our wonderful producer, Christian.
Hey.
Thank you for joining
I noticed
us.
she was producing me. Countdown. Christian,
Yes,
countdown.
yeah.
Well,
That's what she was talking about that during the break, that she
Afraid
wanted to be
I
a
would.
producer.
I would. But I can't do all the things you do. I could do one of them, but not, you do a lot. You know, you guys are kind of twinning today.
A little bit, yeah.
Are we twinning?
Well,
I'm going to change. I'll be right back.
Go to the three-shot.
just take it off. Being skins today.
And we just
It
talked
is
about
Tuesday.
we just talked about my size
Glasses?
16 gut.
Oh, my gosh.
So let's not show that
Like,
off.
what will we be in women's clothes? That was the topic.
yeah.
In terms of sizes, not in terms of looks, just sizes.
Yeah, in terms of looks, I mean, it's like talking about a zero.
Oh, my gosh, that would be fun.
How high do they go?
Put
They
you
go
guys
in
in
the 20s?
drag.
Because I'd be in the 20s, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I don't think you would be, but they do go up that high.
think
No,
I
I
would
would
be.
love to see you guys in drag. Oh my!
So we're on episode
goodness.
42.
That's right.
Any Photoshoppers out there? Take a picture of them and dress them up for me.
Do that. Remember, I have a podcast. And
I
we
will
have 11
pay
listeners.
you
I have 11
money.
listeners, and I will blast you all over.
Sally in San Diego.
That's right,
Looking at
Lamont
you.
in Canada.
I will pay money for that. Somebody can do that. I'll have like $7 in cash.
In cash,
In
even.
cash.
Wow. It might be a bunch of pennies, just so you know. She's gonna be the person that drops off this money like, boom, here's $7 in nickels and dimes and pennies. But it is $7. It still spends the same, right?
Oh, yes, it does. What are we talking about today?
We are on episode 42, the seller's survival guide. So last week we talked about the buyer's survival guide, remembering that we're not getting into any depth here, but this is from the perspective that we are trying to be legendary agents. We are meeting with our client for the first time. And let's talk about the process. Let's talk about what we get into. So last week we talked about the buyer, some of the things we'd look at, how the appraisal looks for them, how the inspection is, contracts, some of the things that would be relevant to them. This week is about the seller. So it's the same conversation, but just the different perspectives. So this is kind of a bulleted point list of things that, again, at the beginning of the conversation, we're talking with our sellers. This is how we work. This is what we do. These are things to look for. So we wanted to kind of go over those with you.
Yeah, and a friendly reminder, we cover a lot of stuff in the episode. Scroll up on iTunes and the show notes we lay it out right there. So if we go through something too fast, it's in the notes.
We don't ever go too fast, do we?
We do cover stuff.
Yeah, we do cover a
We
lot
don't
of
mess
stuff.
around.
You always tell me I go too slowly.
I'm just I wish.
I talk
Maybe it's
too
just that
much.
you
Yeah,
just
somebody's
have
gotta
so
slow-
much filler.
I do.
Somebody's got to slow the podcast
Somebody
down.
likes me out there. Somebody does.
Yeah, unfortunately, more people like her than me. God, I hate that still.
Whatever.
I hate that still.
Wrong.
I don't hate it, but man, do you guys not know how awesome Let's talk about Brian for a minute.
Oh, my
I am an
goodness.
awesand guy. I'm legend. I mean,
I
Cate.
think we're getting
sorry.
off topic
Okay.
here a little
Every
bit.
anyway.
debate, yes. I always win, but go on.
As with everything, we always, every week, have our...
The song of the episode.
The song, the episode song, yes.
Whether it's rock and roll, country, or early hip hop, you know there's no way we're gonna pay to play.
Our weekly song. I was trying to think of a good song. And I did think of a good song. Last week, remember, or if you've listened to last week's episode, it's not about the song, it's about the band, Survivor. Last week was Eye of the Tiger. We're sticking with the Rocky theme. You guys remember the theme song? It was kind of like the follow-up to Eye of the Tiger for Rocky IV. It fell flat. I mean, it still made the mainstream. It was a big song. If you heard it, you'd probably recognize it, called Burning Heart. In the burning heart.
Oh, wait. I think I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
Vaguely.
That's kind of what it is. Like Eye of the Tiger, everybody knows from
Right.
Rocky 3, and this was Survivor's attempt, again, with
Was
respect
that off
to
the
the
album Burning
Survivor.
Heart?
No. That's funny because Eye of the Tiger was off of Eye of the Tiger. Actually, this one was even more generic than that it was off of the Rocky IV soundtrack. So that was it. It wasn't
That's
even
it. So
it
it
was a
wasn't
single
even
that was
released as
It wasn't even released as an album
That's
on an
interesting.
album. It was released on November 1985. Track 1 length 3 minutes and 51 seconds. Last week I gave you a little bit of trivia about Eye of the Tiger, and I had mentioned that Eye of the Tiger was released both on the Eye of the Tiger album at, I don't remember, it was like 4 minutes and 12 seconds.
Right.
It was
Sure.
released on the Rocky III soundtrack as 3 minutes and 51 seconds. Well, it was re-released a third time on the Rocky IV soundtrack as an interlude.
How
and
long?
It was 3 minutes and 46 seconds.
What do they cut
So
out?
the same song released 3 different times they just kept shortening it. Like,
I love
okay, let's just
producers.
cut out.
Right?
I love producers.
You
But
guys
we
know
gotta
how to trim it up.
Cut that down for radio.
You know, it's
Yes.
funny. I'm just thinking about this. I'm a Star Wars nerd. Everybody
What?
knows that.
I had no clue.
Okay. But back in the day, it was very common to have like a Luke Skywalker figure.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it was so cool if you had the Luke Skywalker figure with yellow hair instead of brown hair. Or if you had the Jawa
Mm-hmm.
with a vinyl cape or a cloth cape. Same character, but just...
I'm sure you have all of those.
So, yeah, and so it was important. So, in this situation, it's like they sold 3 different albums. Like, I'm going to get 3 different versions.
yeah.
Which
of
one do
Eye
you
of the
think is the
Tiger.
most collectible?
I would say the one off of Rocky 3.
Off
that
Rocky
seems
3,
to,
yeah.
that would be my opinion.
It'd be the rarest.
And it was the
Yeah.
middle length. It wasn't too long. It wasn't too short. It was right in the middle.
Right in the middle.
Maybe that's what it was, too.
Maybe. How
Kinda-
many Rockies are there?
I
7?
lost track.
I don't know. And do you want to include Creed? Because there's Creed 1 and Creed 2, which was part of the Rocky story.
Oh, yeah.
It was about Rocky being the trainer for Apollo Creed's son.
Yes.
If you remember at the end of
I
Rocky
do remember
4,
that.
Apollo
Wow.
Creed
This
passed
is turning
away.
into a Star Wars.
It is.
Where it's like 1, 2, and 3 are technically 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I want to, for some reason, I want to say there were 6 or 7 Rocky movies, I think.
How many Rocky movies are there?
Kate's doing a Siri check real quick. We'll get back to her in a minute because it might take a minute.
Oh my
Or do you have it?
goodness. There are 8 Rocky
8
Balboa.
Rockies. Okay.
She didn't tell me.
I forgot there was the Balboa.
There you
there
go.
was the Balboa movie too. God. Anyway,
Okay.
let's move on.
What are we talking about
Goodness. Talk about
Sellers.
it.
Was Balboa, is that the one you took the quote from on one of the episodes?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That's right. It was.
Yeah.
It was from the.
Wow, memory.
We read the whole thing.
Yes.
It's like a really long time.
Exactly. It was part of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I remember that now.
So getting into the episode, again, remembering that it's important for us as agents to help our clients go through these things, to help avoid frustrations, that it's easier for us when a situation happens to say, hey, remember on day one when we were talking about that there might be some appraisal issues, that there might be this inspection issue, or we're going to have to go through this hoop that we might have to jump through. And we talked about it on day one. And now here we're in the situation, it's happened, and people are a lot more relaxed. Like, yeah, I do remember that. I mean, it's still frustrating. I'm not saying that I'm upset, but it's a different conversation than we didn't talk about it at all. I never mentioned it before. Didn't even say that was a possibility. And here it isn't like people are like completely taken aback. They're shocked and like, I had no idea about this. And so they're dealing with all kinds of emotions on top of the frustration of the situation happening. So let's talk about the things that we want to do at the beginning with our seller clients. A lot of this actually, good or bad, falls into the same steps that you would run into. So I don't want to rehash the previous episode on buyers, but we did talk about that starting off, we need to talk about how you work. Last week we talked about that you're the buyer's agent and there's a way that you work as a buyer's agent. What are those things? Here you are a listing agent. Let's redescribe that, but from the listing perspective, that here's how I work. Here's cold AC. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a tax expert, but there are things that when you sell a home that we're going to get into, and I just want you to know that I will help you. I'm your guy, but I'm not going to work through everything.
Exactly. I'm your advisor. I'm going to help you with these things. And again, the cold AC, reminding them of all of those factors, what you're going to do and how you represent them and how you hold their hand, what you will do and what you cannot do as well. So making sure, I think the cold AC with sellers to me is a little more important in the aspect of they may try to tell you their mortgage payoff or whatever, or that they have a specific life situation. That's confidential information. Remind them you are not sharing that. You are not at liberty to discuss that with other people. So I usually have the quick conversation with them of, okay, you're moving because of this, but I'd like to at least have some generic response when people ask, well, why are they moving? We just usually say something to do with work or family or whatever, something generic, just to satisfy the buyer's needs, but it doesn't divulge any information about your situation. So,
absolutely. And then the other thing we mentioned last week, too, again, for the seller is remembering to ask your client, what are your expectations of me? I'm listing your home. What kind of things do you expect from me in that listing? What are you looking for? So again, it's just a same question, different perspective.
Yeah, and like you said last time, if they've done this before, if they have, what did they not care for in their previous agent? Or if they purchased the home with somebody else, what things could that agent have done better to help keep them happy, I guess, if you will. It's nice to know that stuff up front.
Absolutely. Then the next thing we go through is, again, walking them through the process. So looking at the listing. In this case, we're going to start off with the listing contract. And here is a great opportunity for you to talk about commissions, how that works. Again, so many people don't realize how commissions are split, that you have a listing contract with the seller, and that I'm going to charge you X number of dollars or X percentage, 5, 6, 7%, whatever it is, but that I'm probably going to split some of that. And that also I have a broker that I'm working for, and they're going to get a part of this too. So there is that opportunity for you to handle that up front, especially when we're at the closing table and like, I didn't realize that it was going to be $7,000. Well, I'm not getting all $7,000. It is split up. It is diced up this way, or separated in this different way.
Yeah, and if you have a good relationship or good rapport with your client, sometimes I like to tease a little bit, and I say, "Well, did you pay for an agent when you bought the house? If it was me, then they probably didn't. And well, sorry, you're kind of mean. You're kind of paying for two agents when you go to sell. You don't get both, but Yeah,
but it's a great way to breach that conversation.
I keep it lighthearted.
Yeah. Good idea, especially about money, because I'm all... anyway, next step would be you want to have the CMA, so make sure that you're able to back that up, talk to them about what that is. You might want to talk about getting a listing appraisal. Get a listing appraisal. The more you know, you need to hire a listing appraisal. Anyway, listing appraisal might be in that conversation. The next thing you want to talk about, too, is marketing. So many people have an expectation of marketing. Again, this is the front end of this, that what are you going to do? Are you going to have professional photography, drone photography? I know that you've used Matterport, where it's
it's like a 3D virtual floor plan, if you will. Yep. And so there are a lot of options, and clients and sellers, I guess, they're looking online. They're going to see things. Ask them. First of all, tell them what you plan to do, and hopefully that's enough. But some of those instances, like Matterport, might only really be necessary in a particular type of home. So it may not be a selling point or worth the money for them. So you might talk through all of that. Another thing, and I know this is your bullet point, but I'm a big proponent of is staging.
Takes it away, exactly. Taking my thunder.
I do.
Go ahead.
That's what I do. Staging.
Read item 2 there.
I am. Thank you.
3's right after that if you want to go to that.
Thank you. Staging. Whose team are you on, Christian? Staging comes in so many different various levels. It can be just taking what you have and either rearranging your furniture or even just decluttering. That is staging right then and there. Hey, maybe we take the coffee pot off the countertop or whatnot, all the way into detailed staging. Is it worth it? Is it something they want? Is it something they expect? So...
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great point. Is it just those are conversations to have, and sometimes they might be tough. And again, we don't want to get into the details of what to stage, how to stage, and all that. But it is a personal thing. I'd like for you to take your pictures down of your ugly ass kids. You're not saying that out loud, but you're saying we're going to have to take down the picture of the kids.
I like to use the words. It's very taste specific. Yes, so when you walk in a room and it's neon green, exactly. It's a little taste specific. Let's bring it down to appeal to the most number of buyers.
Absolutely. There's other intangibles too. I mean, it's funny that so many agents don't realize this. People are shocked that they get a yard sign and what that means sometimes. I mean, of course, they probably know what a yard sign is, but are they prepared for what that's going to look like? Because there are going to be people that are driving by that might be looking like creepy people and all that. And some of them might be creepy, but some people are just slowing down. It's like, why are people slowing down in front of our house all the time? Oh, I've got the sign in the yard. So just kind of remember that. You're going to get doors, or people are going to stop and knock on your door.
How do they handle that? And tell your neighbors. Oh my goodness. Before you put the sign in the yard, tell your neighbors.
Oh, yeah. You
get some very nervous neighbors. What's
Absolutely,
going on?
yep.
Where are you going?
A lockbox is the next one. I mean, it's a security thing. I mean, basically the key to enter your seller's home is attached to the door somehow. So just making sure that they understand that. Again, I know a lockbox is going on here, but just be mindful of what gets into
who
that.
has access to it, reminding them
Yep.
if you're only allowing agents to access it, that, hey, there is a security measure here.
Doing a home walkthrough where you walk through the home, obviously looking for different features, different elements, things like that. Maybe suggest a pre-inspection at this point to look for repairs. If you're seeing that again, you are not an inspector, but if you're noticing, hey, there's some cracks over here, there's some mold over here, or something we think might be mold, or just whatever, that maybe we should get a pre-listing inspection on this thing. Talk to them about open houses, what that looks like. Do you have them? What's the expectation of the seller? And also remind them of the effectiveness of open houses. I mean, I think most agents would agree that sellers want them thinking that it's going to do something to sell their home, and actually it's most of the time for the agent themselves to acquire more buyers. So I'm not saying don't have open houses, but certainly managing the expectation up front that we're going to have an open house, but chances are we're probably not going to sell it. Maybe that really is just for me.
The open house isn't what's going to sell the house.
Exactly.
Not in today's market. Maybe in another market.
Your neighbors will come, though.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
There you go. They'll certainly eat the cookies, won't they? and be nosy. Oh, did you know that's the way they lived? And kind of with that too is that prepare your sellers for showings. Again, we're not going to get into a whole lot of detail of this, but just what to expect, what the timing might be. That again, in today's market, we're in multiple showing situation where we might have 10 showings in an hour, or overlapping and things like that. So just preparing them for that kind of stuff. So that's a big deal.
Yeah. Can I go off topic for a minute?
Oh.
We're picking
You were ready for that.
Things are
Now he's going to speed me along.
He's like,
We're moving this
Side note
through.
tangent.
It's
The
a
topic that you
side
like.
note tangent with Cate.
What is it?
all right, great. Let's go. So going on, that was a great tangent, Cate.
If we are Facebook friends, you probably saw that B recently took me to the Barber Sports Track. And if you remember a couple episodes before, he got us a deal on the flight. Oh, because he gets stuff done.
get stuff done.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that was flipping amazing. The straightaways, 123, I think I topped out.
That's pretty
Cornering
fast.
at 70.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yes, so my birthday's coming up. I was hoping maybe we could get something for the garage. Like a
Did she
We're
talk to
done
you
with
about
the
this
side
before?
We're picking up speed. Things are gonna be great. Wait.
side note tangent.
What do you want, the
It's a
718, the
side note tangent with Cate.
GT4, the 911 Turbo, the $230,000
The 911 Turbo, please.
$230,000 vehicle?
Exactly. And I want to keep my Jeep too. Can we do that? Come on.
Well, we've already talked to Christian because
Yeah.
I had the conversation with Christian. We're going to have to get up to like 15,000 listeners and start
we're at
charging. We're
11?
going to start charging you guys. I don't want to charge. I don't want to charge you guys.
Yeah.
But Cate
I need-
Gotta put up the paywall.
Kate needs the Porsche. So got to pay for it somehow. Hey, this information has come to you for free. Continuing the conversation of walking through the process, again, we mentioned last week there's this purchase agreement, the contract negotiations, reminding them, the seller, that it is a legally binding document. But also here is a big deal that I like to get into, especially with sellers, is that negotiate for things that would make the buyer happy. So I guess the point is that some sellers, I know, get so wrapped up on the offer price that we have the home listed for $100,000 and they only offered me $98,000. I wanted my $100,000. It's like that $98,000 might not be a bad deal if it's a cash offer. We're closing in a couple of weeks, no appraisal, no inspection, et cetera, et cetera. Comparing that to, I got a $101,000 offer, and that's great. That's so much better. But they want closing costs. They're getting an FHA loan. They're going to have appraisal, inspections, all these things. I would probably take the $98,000 every single time. So again, these are more details that we would get into specifics, but just preparing your client that when we're going to negotiate this thing, I'm going to help you look at several things, and let's not just focus on the price.
And I would ask them what's most important to them. Is it their bottom dollar? Is it that I would like 2 weeks to move? Is it, I don't know, I just don't want to pay for a home warranty or whatever it may be. Find out. This is a great time to ask them what is most important to them.
Absolutely. So. Great point. A little note on multiple offer situations. This is something that we as an agent should remind our sellers of, that there's possibility of multiple offers. Ask the client how they want to handle that. The seller does drive the boat on this. They can say, I don't want multiple offers. I will pick one and we'll go from there, or I want to look at all of them, or, I want to have them all done by, or, get them all in and have them all done by 5 by the end of the week, whatever. And they might change their mind. The seller drives the boat on this and kind of remind them of the pros and cons. There are pros and cons to this. There's not a, you should always do this or you shouldn't always do that. Some people are very emotional and psychologically affected by this sometimes, and it's very stressful for them to have to think about it. Like, I don't know who to pick. I don't want to make somebody mad. Like, I'm not saying you want to be mean about it, but ultimately, seller, we're trying to do this for you. So what's the best for you?
And you have to make the decision. And I think this is a nice reminder for agents. You don't get to choose if the seller's asking for highest and best. That's really up to the seller to decide. So like you said, talk about it up front, and that way you're prepared, they can be prepared, and they know their options if and when they happen to get multiple offers.
Absolutely. And also it will help you too, because you're going to get calls from buyer's agents that are saying, hey, have you received any offers? What are the showings looking like? And you have an answer for them that, we have had several interested parties and all that, but my seller, they're not doing a multi-offer deal. They're basically, whoever comes in first is the first one we're going to talk to, or whatever they say. That way you have a response to those buyer agents when they call, and that might motivate them to do something or not do something as the situation might apply. The next thing is, again, something we mentioned last week, is that there are several sets of negotiations that are going on here. There's the buyer's going to have an inspection done. They're going to have an inspection response, so we're going to deal with that. We have the buyer's appraisal, dealing with that, and the underwriting. So just preparing the seller that this is going to be an ongoing thing. Just because we have the contract done doesn't mean that we are done. There's other pieces in here. The next one we mentioned last week with title and title issues. One of the things I want to point out here and maybe this is more for agents to hear this, but the buyer gets to choose the title company. The buyer gets to choose the title company. Are you hearing me, guys? The agent gets to choose. Or sorry, I just said that wrong.
Yeah, you said
the seller gets to choose, or the buyer. Cut.
The buyer.
All right,
go ahead.
The buyer gets to choose the title company, not the seller. Certainly the buyer and seller can negotiate this and agree to it to some degree. The buyer can say, seller, go ahead and pick it. I don't care. But this gets to be an issue so many times. I've seen it so many times on Facebook, discussion pages, in my classes and all that, where agents will fight back and forth. No, the seller gets to choose. They do not. This is a legal thing. This is a federal law thing from the standpoint that the buyer gets to choose this. Now, that's not to say that the seller has to accept the buyer's offer. So there's other options here. I'm not saying that there's not, that this is the thing that the seller has to accept the buyer's choice, but it is the buyer's choice, and we have to negotiate and work through that with that premise in mind. If the listing agent's saying, no, we're using our company, you are breaking the law, guys, so you cannot do that.
It's not the agent either. Whoever gets mad, it's always the agents getting mad.
It's always the agents getting mad at each other.
If the seller has a preference for some reason, maybe throw that in a remark somewhere just to another agent. Like, hey, we've run preliminary title work here, and we'd really like to use this company. Maybe they don't care, but
absolutely,
remind the seller.
Remind the seller too that there's going to be a final property inspection that the buyer might want to get into, so just be prepared for that and what that looks like. Certainly the closing is going to be easier for the seller than it is for the buyer. I mean, the seller doesn't have nearly the millions of documents that the buyer has to fill out, but still, receipts for repairs, things like that might be relevant. So we'll prepare for that. Possession. Go ahead.
And on closing, one thing I like to mention too is I prefer to ask the seller, are you okay meeting the buyer? Sometimes there's instances where maybe there's been some uncomfortableness through the process, and might be better if they're not in the same room. So I always ask, because they don't know what to expect. They don't know, am I meeting the buyer? I had no idea. Well, maybe we want to do a separate closing. That's something to chat with them ahead of time.
Absolutely.
So you're not thinking about it 2 days before closing.
Absolutely. Possession was the last thing that we talked about. Just are we doing it at closing? After closing, what that looks like. Seller, we have it at closing. Make sure that you are moved out, because when we sign these documents, buyer's moving in that afternoon or evening or whatever it is, or it's after closing. It's a week after closing. So, okay, you have a little bit of time, but you only have
And this
the 5,
is a big
6, 7
one, because
days.
rural markets and some other areas, they still do 30 days possession, and that's standard, 30 days possession after closing. That is not the case where we are. So we want to make sure that you're making that clear up front.
Yep, absolutely. Other miscellaneous things to have conversations with. Certainly this applies to any transaction, but certainly we see it happen more often with sellers and listings are fair housing issues that we will have conversations, unfortunately, of bigoted jerk people. I'm just calling them out for what they are, that they'll say, well, I don't want to sell the home to any of these people, or there's no way I'm going to sell it because of a last name or because of some appearance that they don't like, or feeling that they have, two men signing the document. Oh, I don't do that because I don't like two men or two women or whatever. And again, we can get into this whole
Just get out of that
conversation.
listing
Just be
contract.
done with that. You don't need to
yeah.
deal with those jerks. So, but we've had the conversation and just say, you know what? I mean, again, I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but we always like to use the phrase that the only color I see is green. All I want to do is sell the home. I don't care who wants to buy it. I don't care anything else. So just having that discussion with them. Certainly home warranty would be something. The only thing I would interject on home warranty that we didn't really get into the buyer side is that the home warranty actually has some benefits for the seller too. That while we have your home listed for sale, most home warranties, at least to my knowledge, do cover the seller during the listing time period. So it might be a good thing, because we've been in this situation before where we have a home listed for sale. We're in the process of doing that. The water heater goes bad. And man, that just really sucks for the seller, because now they're going to pay for a brand new water heater that they're not even going to really get the use of. And it's very frustrating for them. We have a home warranty. Maybe that's covered. So things like that. Certainly, if we're dealing with a listing that has a pre-foreclosure or it's an REO or short sale listing, a whole other set of conversations we need to have.
Yeah, and there is a question in our state contract, and I don't know about other states, but ours, we specifically ask them, are you current on your payments? Are you in default? And I always tell them, I know this is a very uncomfortable thing to ask, but I have to know now. If you're behind on payments, it can completely change how this process works. So just be honest with me and tell me now. So
absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes that gets to be uncomfortable, but we need to know it. We need to know for multiple reasons.
Exactly.
So that's really it. So that's a good list of things to go over. Again, these are all things you're going to cover at the beginning, talking about these. We're not going to get into any depth, but just it gives you a reference point to go back to, that when these things come about, we can go back and say, hey, remember we talked about that? And the seller is going to be less alarmed, less concerned. They're at least prepared for it. They know a little bit of what's going to happen.
You set the expectations appropriately, and they know how it's going to be moving forward.
So we have our quote of the episode. Last week, I had mentioned to you that we're recording this episode right after Ruth Bader Ginsburg had passed away, rest her soul. And again, I mentioned last week, I'm not a huge fan of her politically necessarily, but outside of that, forgetting politics, because I can do that, and more people should be able to do this, let go of the politics, that she was a good woman for some of the things that she stood up for. She was a huge women's right thing. And being a husband, God, you're such a jerk every time you do that. God, she looks at me and gives me this. God.
Can you guys see it on the camera?
Anyway, so
see his eyeballs.
Anyway, I am a huge proponent of empowering women, and I have a lovely wife that I love to build her up, and I have a daughter. I have some bonus daughters. Love trying to build them up. Ruth Bader Ginsburg had a quote that I love for her that kind of ties this all in together. Is that Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, "My mother told me to be a lady." And for her, that meant by be your own person, be independent. Damn, I love that. I love that so much. Is that just, you're going to be a lady, but you are so strong. You are your own person. You are independent. You do have the power. I don't give a crap what the world does. I don't care that there are jerk men out there that put you down. I'm not trying to make a political statement here of equality of wages and all that. That's certainly part of the conversation. But ladies, even though the world might not let you do it, you stand up and you be strong. That's it. Closing the episode out. There's so many steps to take with it. Hard to transition from that. There's so many steps to talk with your client with. Show them your value. Show them what you bring to the table. Show them that you're a legendary agent, that you have their back, that you've got them and you're going to take care of them all the way. And they will love you and they're going to send you a like crazy. So that's it.
Be your own person.
Be your own person. We love your feedback. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. We will have in our show notes the list of the different things. So again, something that you can build off of. Something that Cate mentioned last week. Make this look pretty. Make it look nice. Have it at a nice binder, but just have a checklist of things you can go through with that. If you like that, email us. Email me at brian@brianclee.com. It'll be in the show notes. It'll be great. That's it for me today, guys. You take care and have a legendary day.
You've been listening to Real Estate Between the Lines with Brian Lee. If you'd like to learn more about becoming a legendary agent, be sure to visit us at brianclee.com and sign up to hear about upcoming workshops and events. Now go out there and turn your clients into raving fans.